Have you ever sat in that heavy silence at a family dinner? We retell those moments honest every day, sometimes controversial. Every story is a mirror. Subscribe, join the conversation, and maybe find a little healing. The phone on the kitchen counter started to buzz against the wood, a low insect sound under the rain. Evelyn Reyes stood at the sink, palms on the cool rim, looking at the black window where her face floated between raindrops. The clock above the stove read 12:17. The house smelled like soap and potting soil. She picked up on the third ring. Grandma, a whisper, breath grazing the microphone. The door is locked. I am thirsty. Evelyn pressed the phone harder to her ear. Lily, honey, where are you in the house? In my room. A swallow, then softer. Please come. A small tap traveled through the line. Water dripping somewhere on Lily's side. Evelyn could hear it between the hitching breaths. She pictured a bathroom cup left dry on a nightstand. Listen to me, Evelyn said, keeping her voice level. Stay by the phone. Do not open to anyone but me. I'm coming right now. Okay. The answer was a thread. The call clicked off. Evelyn set the receiver down and felt her hands begin to shake. Coat, keys, shoes. Habit moved her. She slid her old green parka on, grabbed her purse from the dining chair, and patted the side pocket for the thin silver key she had not used in months. The spare for Amber's house sat inside a little wooden sparrow that used to hang by that porch, if they had not thrown it away. Rain met her at the door, cold needles on the cheeks. The porch boards were damp and black. She locked her own house without looking and jogged to the car, the Subaru's engine caught with a cough, wipers squealing at their first sweep. On the dashboard, the radio came alive mid-forecast. Coastal flood advisory. She turned the sound down. The streets of North Portland were emptied of people and full of water. Puddles made mirrors of porch lights. As she took the bend near St. John's Bridge, steel arches rose like a spine in the dark. She thought of Lily's hands dry and chapped holding a plastic cup. She thought of Amber's voice last week, cheerful and far away, promising she had it under control. The Harper house sat in a row of tired bungalows with sagging fences and tired hedges. Evelyn pulled up with her headlights low. The front yard was a wet tangle. The porch bulb was dead. A stack of circulars lay curled like leaves by the steps. From the street she could see nothing but her own lights reflected back in the front window. She climbed the steps and tapped the wood of the porch rail with 2 fingers, an old habit. The sparrow hook still hung beside the doorbell, paint peeled to gray. She lifted the bird's belly. The spare key was gone. Her throat tightened. She tried the knob. Locked. She slid her purse off and dug, found the paper clip she kept, for everything bended out with her thumbnail. The deadbolt would not care. She checked the side gate. It hung crooked latch, rusted by rain. She eased it open, skirted a bucket filled with brown water, and made for the back. The back door carried a simple knob lock. Wood had swollen in the frame. She pried gently with the screwdriver from her glove box body braced against the door and felt the swell give. The latch slipped. The door swung. Darkness with a smell. Old smoke. Wet carpet. Something sour. She did not turn on the kitchen light at first. She stood in the doorway and let her eyes adjust. There was a bowl with congealed noodles on the counter, a spoon standing straight up. The refrigerator hummed and ticked. A fly buzzed near her face, then drifted to the sink. She hit the switch. The light made the mess real. Beer cans by the trash. A half-pack of cigarettes open on the table. On the wall, a low smudge where hands had dragged. She crossed the kitchen, stepping around a damp towel, and called into the hallway. Lily, it's Grandma. From the far end, a sound rose. Not a word, but a breath that changed shape. Evelyn followed it. The hallway felt smaller than she remembered. On the left, a bedroom door. New hardware. A small metal loop beneath the knob. The padlock clung to it dull in the light. Evelyn put her ear to the door. Honey, are you there? The phone on the other side scraped wood. I am here. You are safe. Back away from the door. Cover your ears. She went into the garage and found a red toolbox under a stack of paint cans. A hammer lay at the bottom, speckled with old primer. She took it and returned. She did not let herself look long at the screwed-down window over the bed, the blanket balled in the corner, the line of plastic cups under the desk. She put the claw against the lock and hit steady. The third strike popped the shackle free. The lock fell with a noise that sounded too loud for the hour. Lily ran into her. Evelyn caught the little body and held it to her chest. Lily's hair smelled like old pillow. Her skin was too cool. She shook in small bursts. "You came," Lily said into the coat. "Of course." Evelyn felt the ribs under the dress. "We are going to the kitchen." In the light of the kitchen, Lily squinted and put a hand up to shade her eyes. Her lips were cracked. There was a ring of dried milk at the bottom of a plastic cup by the sink, but no milk in the refrigerator that was good. Eggs? There were eggs. Evelyn pulled a skillet and a small knob of butter. The first slip of butter hit the metal and went translucent. The smell was warm and fat and ordinary. Lily's eyes followed the eggs as if they were a trick. "Drink some water," Evelyn said, and held a glass under the tap. The water ran cold for a long time. Lily lifted it with both hands and drank, pausing twice to breathe. When she set it down, her jaw trembled. She looked at the hallway as if a noise would come from it. "They will not come now," Evelyn said, lying without knowing if she was wrong. "Sit." She put toast in the toaster and watched the coil glow orange. Lily ate with small, quick bites. She paused after each one and listened. The overhead light buzzed. The rain sounded softer on the back steps than it had at the front door, like someone shuffling cards. Evelyn stood and looked at the house while the girl ate. The magnet board on the refrigerator was bare. The school calendar lay under a stack of coupons. She took her phone from her coat pocket and began to take pictures. The padlock on the floor by the bedroom door, the cups under the bed, the piles in the living room. She turned the flash off. The pictures came out gray and grainy, which felt truer than bright and sharp. Grandma Lily said when the plate was clean, "Can I shower? I'm cold." "Yes." Evelyn went to the bathroom. The hot water came slow but steady. Steam climbed the mirror, a white cloudy breath. She found a clean towel near the bottom of the linen shelf and shook off the dust. Lily stood in the doorway with her hands together. In the steam, Lily looked smaller. There were faint bruises that did not look fresh and a line on her shin that might have been from the edge of a bed frame. Evelyn did not catalog every mark. The doctor would do that. She washed Lily's hair with baby shampoo that smelled like apples. Lily closed her eyes and tilted her face into the stream. Water pattered against the white tile. The sound filled the room until it was the only sound. After Evelyn found a soft t-shirt on the chair in the bedroom and pulled it over Lily's head. It hung to her knees. The dress she had worn went into a plastic bag. Lily's fingertips held the shirt hem as if it might be taken away. "We will go to my house," Evelyn said. "We will get your things later." Lily looked at the window. It was screwed shut at the corners. A strip of paint sealed the seam like a scar. She reached out and touched the cold glass. In the reflection, their shapes wavered in the hallway light. "Can I bring my bear?" Lily asked. "Where is it?" "Under the bed, in the back." They knelt and reached into the dust. The bear's ear came first, then the rest. It smelled like closet. Lily put it to her chest and pressed her nose to the worn fabric. The bear's stitched eye had a scratch down it, a thin white line. Evelyn gathered a backpack and put in a sweater socks, a pair of shoes, 3 drawings from the desk. One drawing was a black room with a yellow sliver under a door. Another was a garden with no color, only lines. She slid them carefully into a folder. She turned off lights as they moved toward the kitchen. The house felt less like a place and more like a stage left, after the show props sitting where hands had dropped them. She locked the back door and checked the knob twice. At the threshold, Lily's hand found Evelyn's in the dark. The porch smelled like rain and wet wood. The Subaru sat in the side yard, with its hood beaded with water. The street was quiet. Evelyn heard it then. A car engine at the front. The hum settled into a low idle. Headlights slipped across the front of the house and poured in a thin stripe through the crack in the kitchen curtains. Somewhere out there a door clicked. Lily held her breath. Evelyn felt the little fingers squeeze. She switched off the kitchen light and stood still, listening to the rain and that slow engine, bright lines of light moving over linoleum. Evelyn kept still until the engine noise thinned and drifted away. The headlights slid off the curtain and were gone. Rain took back the soundscape. Lily's grip loosened and she rubbed the bear's ear with her thumb. "We are leaving," Evelyn whispered. She opened the back door and walked the girl along the narrow side yard, wet ferns brushing their coats. The Subaru opened with a soft chirp. Evelyn buckled Lily and tucked the blanket to her chin and set the bear under her arm. The dashboard clock glowed 1:06. At the corner clinic, only a triangle of light marked the night entrance. The nurse looked up from a paperback, took in Lily's chapped lips, in the plastic bag of clothes and put the book face down without asking questions. They sat in a room with posters of skeletons and toothbrushes. The air smelled like antiseptic and lemon. Dr. Chen came in wearing scrubs printed with tiny rockets. He spoke gently to Lily and showed her his stethoscope like a magic coin before pressing it to her back. The girl's shoulders rose and fell beneath the thin t-shirt. He checked her eyes, her gums, her weight. The numbers printed from a small machine curling at the edges. He noted bruises none fresh and the dryness at the knuckles. His voice stayed even when he turned to Evelyn. "Hydration now. Food is tolerated. I would like to order basic labs. I will document my findings." Evelyn nodded. She did not trust her voice. Lily drank 2 cups of water, then another half. Her eyelids fluttered with the effort. When a siren wailed in the street, she flinched and the water trembled in the cup. Evelyn stepped into the hallway, pulled out her phone, and called the number she had from a business card on her fridge, a card that had sat there for months as a superstition. Tanya Brooks answered on the second ring voice, brisk but not hard. Evelyn gave the bare facts, the padlock, the photographs, the child's condition. Tanya asked for the address, the names, and a place to meet in the morning. Her words clicked into a plan Evelyn could hold. Outside, the rain slowed to a mist. The city looked rinsed and new. Evelyn drove home with the heater on low. Lily's breathing steadied from the back seat. When they reached the little blue house with the maple tree, the porch light spilled a soft cone on the steps. Inside, the air held a safe mix of coffee and laundry. Evelyn made toast and scrambled eggs. The kitchen clock ticked like a friendly insect. Lily ate without speaking, careful and quick, glancing up after each bite, as if asking permission with her eyes. She studied the magnets on the refrigerator and rearranged 2 of them to make a crooked L. "Do you feel okay?" Evelyn asked. Lily nodded and touched the glass where condensation had gathered. The drop slid down and left a clear trail. "Would you like the blue room?" The spare room had been painted ocean blue for a reason. Lily had forgotten and Evelyn had not. Lily looked down the hall and walked toward it, checking the ceiling for shadows. She lay on top of the quilt and pulled the blanket to her chin. The bear took the place inside her arms with the familiarity of a habit. Evelyn sat on the chair by the window and watched the girl's breath slow. Around 4, the house went quiet in the way that happens right before dawn. When the sun finally came, it came thin and careful through a broken cloud layer. The kettle sang. Evelyn scrambled more eggs, added strawberries, and made the kind of toast that browns just at the edges. Lily sat at the table with her feet not touching the floor and ate as if the plate might be taken. Her eyes rested on the vase of daffodils, then on the small tin of colored pencils beside it. "Can I draw?" she asked. "Of course." Lily chose a dull black and drew a rectangle with a line of light under one edge. Then she picked up yellow and turned the line brighter. Her hand hesitated over a blue and then set it down. A knock at the door pulled Evelyn to her feet. She looked through the peephole. Amber's shape swayed on the porch, wet hair to her shoulders. Cody stood behind her with a baseball cap and a face the color of brick. The knob rattled. "Open up," he said. "That is my stepkid." Lily's chair scraped. She folded into herself small as a fist. Evelyn touched her shoulder, then went back to the door. "Call the police," Amber said, voice high and thin. "She took my kid. She is crazy." Evelyn kept her voice low and straightforward. "Go home, Amber. Call an officer if you want. I will show them the lock you used." Cody hit the door with the heel of his hand, a fast pounding that made the wood shudder. Lily's breath came fast. Evelyn stood with one palm flat on the door and waited. When the pounding stopped, a silence opened and stretched, and then their footsteps retreated to the stairs. The car engine started and faded down the street. Tanya arrived an hour later with a canvas bag and a binder. She took off her wet jacket, shook out her curls, and sat at Evelyn's table as if it was normal to open a binder between plates of toast crumbs. Lily stood in the hallway and watched. "We will keep this simple," Tanya said. "We need your photographs, Dr. Chen's notes. School contacts. I will file an emergency petition. A judge will decide today. Can Lily speak with the judge privately if asked?" Lily's eyes flicked from Tanya to Evelyn. Evelyn nodded once. Lily took a breath that was too deep for her small chest and nodded back. They drove downtown past the river where the water ran high and brown. The courthouse smelled like dust and coffee. People moved in lines that bent and waited. Focus made the hours pass with odd speed. Evelyn signed papers where Tanya pointed, initialed where she needed to initial. The hallway outside the courtroom had a vending machine that hummed like a large cat. Amber arrived late, hair pulled into a knot. Dress wrinkled as if it had been on the floor. Cody leaned against the wall with his eyes half shut. A man with a tablet whispered to them, then pressed his lips together as if tasting something bitter. Judge Whitaker had white hair and hands that moved with economy. He looked at each person and then at the papers on his bench. Tanya spoke first. She laid out the photographs, the dates, the notes. She did not fill the room with adjectives. The padlock in the photograph did that by itself. Amber pulled at her sleeve and looked anywhere but at the pictures. It was one night, she said. We had an emergency. My mother is exaggerating. She has always wanted to make me look bad. The judge's eyes rested on her and did not move. There is a lock on the outside of a child's bedroom door. He said it like a fact that filled the room. He asked to speak to Lily in chambers. Evelyn waited in the hallway with her hands round a paper cup of water. The water made the cup sweat. Lily went in with Tanya and came out with calm on her face, the kind of calm that happens after a hard thing is said. The judge returned and called them all to stand. His voice was even and without flourish. He granted Evelyn emergency custody for 6 months. He ordered drug tests for Amber and Cody. He limited visits to sessions supervised by the county. He asked Tanya for a home inspection and a school report. He set a review date. He finished with a sentence that Evelyn would remember in the way a person remembers the exact sound of a bell. Keys belong with the person who protects the door. Outside, the sky had broken into patches of sudden blue. The air smelled like wet concrete and hot brakes. Lily held Evelyn's hand with a grip that was lighter than before. They walked to the car through a crowd of strangers who were all turning past their own papers and their own stories. Back at the Blue House, Evelyn folded the court order into a folder and put it in the kitchen drawer where she kept recipes and warranty cards. She made tea and cut apples. Lily sat on the couch with the bear and a pencil and drew a garden that for the first time held a small square of color at the center. She chose green for the stems and yellow for a handful of petals. The house seemed to let out a breath. As dusk came, the maples on the street showed their wet shine, and the neighborhood turned to small, friendly noises. A bike bell, a dog tag tapping against a metal bowl. The phone on the counter lit with a number Evelyn recognized. She let it ring, then lifted it to stop the sound. The machine took the call. Amber's voice arrived in the room as if she were standing in the doorway. "You cannot keep her forever," she said. There was no shouting. The words were flat and soft. "You think you can, but you cannot." The line clicked. Lily looked up from her drawing. Evelyn set the phone face down and sat beside her. The kettle whispered on the stove. Rain began again in a light stitch across the windows. By morning, the rain had softened into a hush. The kettle's whistle felt less like an alarm and more like a bird. Evelyn taped a paper calendar to the refrigerator and wrote the date with a blue pen. Breakfast at 7, school drop-off. Dr. Maya at 3. The rhythm was quiet and visible, which made it easier to breathe. Lily perched at the table in the same chair as last night. She ate oatmeal with the caution of a person who had learned to pace hunger. When she was finished, she lined up her spoon and the empty cup so that their edges made a neat little seam on the table. Her eyes tracked the steam from the kettle, then the rain streaks on the window. The house answered back with small domestic sounds. The dishwasher's pulse, the soft thump of heat through the vents. Water was everywhere, but none of it threatened. At 10, they drove to the small office off Alberta, where colored flags fluttered on a string over the doorway. The sign read, "Levin Child Wellness." Inside, a lamp with a paper shade glowed on a low bookshelf. There was a sand tray with tiny figurines, jars of crayons, and a box with a hinge that clicked when you closed it. Dr. Maya had a warm voice and a tiny scar on her eyebrow that made her look like she smiled with her whole face. She showed Lily the room without using the word therapy. She said this was a place where kids put hard thoughts in pictures and sand in stories. She handed Lily a pack of thick paper and slid a tin of crayons closer. Lily picked black first, then paused, then touched yellow as if it might sting. The black made a box. The yellow made a small line under the edge. She pressed so gently the wax barely took. "Tell me about this," Dr. Maya said, not leaning in too much. "It is a door," Lily said. "What is under it?" "Light." They did not ask more. Dr. Maya gave Lily a small key from a jar of trinkets in a shallow wooden box with a lid. She showed her how the key fit, though it did not really unlock anything not in the mechanical way. Lily placed the key inside, shut the lid, and listened to the little click. She did it again and again, each click a visible thing she could control. When they left, the air had turned to a pearl gray. Evelyn drove to the elementary school where a woman with a bright scarf greeted Lily by name. Ms. Patel talked about gentle transitions and reading logs and said the words, "I am glad you are here," in a way that sounded like a true sentence and not a policy. Lily's seat was near a window. She touched the sill like a promise and tucked her backpack under her feet. That night, a small storm moved through. Lily woke with damp hair and a sound stuck between her teeth. Evelyn took her to the kitchen without turning on the overhead light. The kettle made its soft breath. She stirred cocoa into milk and watched a little island of powder melt and sink. Lily drank in small sips. She looked not at the doorway, but at the fridge where her own drawing had been taped eye level with her small face. "It is different," Lily said, meaning the house, meaning the sounds. "Yes," Evelyn said, "it is ours." The first supervised visit took place in a county room that smelled faintly of crayons. There were plastic bins of toys puzzles with some pieces missing a clock with a second hand that clicked a little too loud. Tanya sat at a small table with a notebook. She was not a guard, not a friend, not a judge. She was a person who wrote down what happened and made sure nothing unsafe happened. Amber arrived 8 minutes late with a shiny smile and the kind of perfume that filled a doorway. Mint gum moved in her cheek. Her hair was brushed, but there was a tremor in her hands when she pushed it back. Cody was not with her. She crouched to Lily's eye level and held still as if trying something new. "Hi, baby," she said. "You look so pretty." Lily did not step forward. She looked at Tanya. She looked at the clock. She folded her arms over her stomach in a way that made her shirt wrinkle into a tight line. "We can color," Amber said, too bright. "I brought you a coloring book. It is puppies." Lily did not reach. She could smell something under the perfume, and her mouth made a thin, pressed line. Amber laughed a little and then glanced at Evelyn as if there might be something like help there. The look landed and slid off. The room recorded everything. Tanya's pen moved, not fast, not slow. "Why did you lock my door?" Lily asked. The words came out of a small throat and felt heavier than the room. Amber's mouth opened, then closed. She picked a crayon and drew a circle that became a mess because her hand would not obey her idea. "It was not like that," she said. "It was complicated. Grandma is making this worse." Lily put both hands on the table very flat. Tanya said they were done for today. Amber said she was being punished. Lily stood up and walked to Evelyn without running. The whole scene took less time than boiling a kettle and left the kind of feeling that only sits later when you are in your own kitchen. 2 days later, a test came back. Tanya called with words that were short and careful. Visits would pause. Referrals would be reissued. The words made sense and did not. Lily heard the call from the hall and went to the sink and ran her hands under the cold water. The water ran, and then she turned it off and shook her fingers dry. Evelyn collected papers because papers were the shape that power took in rooms with benches and microphones. School attendance. Weight chart from Dr. Chen with little dots, stepping up where they had sagged. Letters from Miss Patel that described a girl who answered when called who started to raise a hand. Notes from Dr. Maya that said words like stabilization and sleep pattern and trauma symptoms decreasing in frequency. None of this changed the sound a child makes in the dark at 3 a.m, but it drew a line someone in a black robe could see. The second court date came on a day the sky forgot how to be one color. They sat on a bench near a fern in a pot that looked like it had survived a decade of waiting. Tanya arranged the stack on her lap. Amber entered with a cardigan that did not fit and eyes that slid off faces. She spoke out of order. She said she was fine. She nodded at points no one else was making. Cody did not come. Judge Whitaker listened without moving much. He looked at photographs the way a person reads a weather map. He read reports and made few expressions. He asked a question that sat in the air for a long time. "Why is there a lock?" Amber said emergency. The judge looked at the photograph and then at Amber's face, as if comparing two versions of the same scene. He gave his decision cleanly. Evelyn would hold permanent custody. Any visits would require proof of sobriety over time and even then would be structured. He said it in the record and waited to see if anyone would argue with a record. After outside the courthouse, the colors of the day seemed louder. The crosswalk chirped. A bus sighed to a stop and let out a bright voice that called out a route. Lily walked beside Evelyn with a paper cup of water and a plastic lid that hissed each time she took a small sip. They did not talk about the words permanent or custody. They walked to the car. That night, Evelyn boiled noodles and salted the water the right way. She put butter and pepper and a ribbon of Parmesan on top and set the bowl on the table where the vase of daffodils had been replaced by a bunch of tulips, so red they looked painted. Lily ate with calm hands. She did not glance at the door between bites. She wiped her mouth with her wrist and then with a napkin because she remembered. She pushed her bowl back and drew a fingertip circle on the wood where there was no spill. "Can I call you Mom?" she asked. The question landed without noise. Evelyn felt it in the ribs and in the throat and in the place a person might name if there was a name for it. She saw the calendar with its blue ink. She saw the wooden box on Dr. Maya's shelf and the toy key under the lid. She saw the padlock on the kitchen floor and a photograph that lived now in a folder. "Yes," she said. Lily nodded and did not try the word right away. She went to the couch and took up a pencil and drew a small house with a square of light in the middle, a square that had not been there before. She colored it yellow, then added a few lines of green under it that looked like a garden starting to know itself. The blue room felt like a room waiting for sleep again. Evelyn changed the pillowcase and straightened the quilt. Lily brushed her teeth and made a face in the mirror that made both of them laugh without trying. She climbed into bed with the bear tucked under her chin and closed her eyes at her own pace. The house settled. The rain lifted and left quiet air behind. Evelyn washed dishes and felt the warm water soften the ache in her hands. She set the plate in the rack and turned off the tap. The silence that followed was a new kind, not the kind that listens for footsteps outside, but the kind that listens for nothing in particular. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a number she did not have. She let it go to the machine. The message came through the little speaker, the voice thinner than she remembered, without sugar. "I checked into treatment," Amber said. "This time I checked in. Please do not hang up on me." The light on the machine blinked in the dim kitchen. The kettle clicked as the metal cooled. The house held steady. The first letter came on cheap paper that bled a little at the edges when the envelope got wet. Amber wrote in big, careful print like a person trying to steady a hand. She apologized in circles and made promises that leaned too hard on always and never. Evelyn read it at the table with the kettle cooling and did not show it to Lily. 2 more arrived that week. Each one tipped toward apology and then slipped into old gravity. By the second month, the tone thinned. Amber wrote about a group meeting in a church basement and a woman who kept peppermints in her purse for newcomers. She wrote about washing dishes in hot water that smelled like lemon and the way her hands looked when they were not shaking. She did not ask to see Lily. She wrote that she understood if she was not allowed. Evelyn folded that one in half and put it in the drawer. She waited a day, then took it back out and held it in both hands before giving it to Lily at breakfast. Lily read at a steady pace, lips moving without sound. She flipped the paper and looked at the blank back as if there might be more under the fibers. She set the page down and touched the corner to square it with the edge of the table. "What does she mean when she says she is learning to show up?" Lily asked. "That she is practicing being there when she says she will," Evelyn said. They talked in the quiet ways you talk when a house is listening. No speeches, no declarations. Evelyn suggested a meeting with rules. Lily nodded, then looked down at her wrist and tapped the skin 3 times. They made that the signal. If she did it, they would stop, no matter who was speaking. Evelyn wrote the rules in a small notebook and tore out the page. She put it in her pocket. The meeting took place in Dr. Maya's room on a Tuesday at 3. The paper shade on the lamp made the light look like a warm square of cake. Tanya sat in a corner with a clipboard and a pen that did not click. She greeted Amber with a simple hello and no extras. Amber came in with hair clean and pulled back. The perfume was quiet. Her hands were empty except for a flat wrap parcel that could only be a book or art supplies. She stopped a few paces from Lily and took a breath. "Hi, Lily," she said. "I brought something for you. I can put it on the table if you do not want me to hand it to you." Lily did not move toward her. She tilted her head and looked at Evelyn. Evelyn nodded once. Lily pointed to the table. Amber set the wrapped gift down and stepped back. Lily peeled the paper with the kind of care she used on new pencils. Inside was a set of watercolors in a tin, a block of heavy paper, and brushes that came in their own cloth sleeve. Amber said she had learned how to pick decent supplies from a woman she worked with at a flower cart on Alberta. She said it like a scrap of ordinary thrown onto a fire that needed small, steady fuel. They sat. Dr. Maya asked about the week in broad ways. Tanya's pen moved without hurry. Lily held the tin in her lap and traced the edge with her thumb. Amber did not reach for her or try to borrow the word baby. She folded her hands and unfolded them and let them stay still. "Why did you put the lock on my door?" Lily asked, not loud. Amber looked at the floor and then at the wall behind Lily's head. She swallowed. She did not say it was complicated. She did not say it was only one night. Her mouth trembled and then went flat. "Because I was sick and wrong," she said. "I am sorry for that. I am sorry you were afraid and hungry." Lily watched her mouth as if the truth might change the shape of a lip. She looked at Tanya, then at Dr. Maya, then at Evelyn. No one moved. Lily let the words sit and did not touch them. 15 minutes in there was a small smell in the room that was not anyone's fault. A woman in the hallway walked by with too much perfume like a cloud. Lily's shoulders lifted. Her hand went to her wrist and tapped 3 times. Evelyn stood. Dr. Maya said they were done for today with a voice that did not carry a hint of blame. Amber nodded and looked at her own shoes. She did not ask for more time. She said thank you for the minutes she had been given. The second meeting was better because they all knew how it went. Lily sat closer to the table, but not close to Amber. Amber told a story about a cut flower that kept drinking and drinking like it was trying to be a river. The story was nothing much and somehow exactly right. Lily smiled without showing teeth. She opened the tin and wet a brush and pulled a short, bright line across the paper. The line dried into a stripe like a secret ribbon. She put the brush down and folded the sleeve again. In the 3rd month, the meeting took place at the Children's Art Museum, where rooms were full of shapes and tables at the right height for small bodies. Tanya walked a few paces behind like a person out for a slow errand. Amber listened to Lily explain how watercolor blooms if you drop clean water into wet paint. She asked questions that did not lead and did not show off what she did or did not know. She bought a small postcard in the gift shop and wrote Lily's name on it in careful block letters and then put it in her own pocket to mail later. Outside, the sky did what Portland skies do and gave rain that felt like a veil more than a weather. They stood under a shallow overhang and watched the drops make circles in a shallow puddle. Lily used the flat end of her brush to draw letters in the fog on the window. She wiped them away with her sleeve as if the window had embarrassed her. In the park, on a rare, clear day, they sat at a picnic table with a palisade spread on newsprint. Evelyn watched from a bench with a thermos that kept tea warm. Amber held the cup once and warmed her fingers before handing it back without drinking. Lily painted stems and then leaves, and then the idea of a petal. Amber suggested a little salt for texture. Lily tried it and smiled at the way crystals made stars where color had been flat. Color lived there for a while and did not look like a stranger. On a late afternoon in May, the room at Dr. Maya's felt too small for the question that needed asking. Lily had painted a small square of light and put a dark wash around it to listen for how it might glow. She looked up at Amber and spoke in a voice that did not ask for pity. "Are you trying to be my mom again?" she said. The air in the room shifted. Papers felt louder. Even Tanya's pen paused in the air as if it had a pulse. Amber sat very still. She did not reach for a pocket or for a phrase she had rehearsed in the mirror. "No," she said. "Evelyn is your mom. I lost that when I could not keep you safe. If you let me, I can be your friend who shows up. I can be someone who is here when you want me here and nowhere near when you do not." Lily looked at her own wrist, then at Evelyn's face, then at the tin of colors on the table. She nodded one time, small and exact. She went back to the paper and lifted the yellow and pressed it in the square again. The color pushed out to the edges and held. After, on the porch outside the office, the sun surprised them by staying. Smell of cut grass lifted from the small strip of park across the street. Amber stood at the bottom of the steps with her hands in her coat pockets. She did not climb up. She looked at Lily and then at the sky and then at the bus stop bench. Evelyn could see the woman her daughter had been at 17, standing inside the outline of this woman, now a shape you could almost touch and not quite. They walked to the car. Lily's shoes made small sounds on the sidewalk. She held the watercolor tin to her chest like a book and did not look back. At the curb, she stopped and looked at Evelyn, not at the office, not at the street. "Can she come for ice cream next time?" she asked. Evelyn watched a neon cone blink to life in the window of a shop half a block away. A boy inside wiped the counter in slow, even circles. The sign buzzed on and off, on and off. Rain started again very light as if practicing. Lily lifted her face to it and closed her eyes. They bought ice cream. It dripped down Lily's wrist and she laughed when Amber handed over a wad of napkins and missed the drip by an inch. The neon cone in the window buzzed and flickered. Rain brushed the sidewalk like a soft broom. They ate under the awning with 2 plastic spoons in no hurry. Time began to hold shape. Spring turned in small, clean clicks into summer. On Sundays, the farmers' market opened like a bright map across the street. Amber sold bouquets from a cart with a canvas awning. A chalkboard read "Second Bloom" in a hand Lily recognized from old birthday cards. She watched Amber tie ribbons around stems with fingers that did not tremble. She held a cup of cocoa from the stand on the corner even in June because she liked the way the steam lifted and disappeared. Lily grew into her shoes. School days stacked in neat lines on the calendar. Ms. Patel wrote notes that made Evelyn fold them twice and put them in a drawer. Dr. Maya moved sessions to every other week, then once a month. The toy key stayed in the wooden box on her shelf. Each time Lily visited, she lifted the lid, looked at the key and shut it again with a soft click just to hear the sound. When visits shifted to a park bench and then to the small museum cafe without Tanya at the next table, it felt less like a test and more like a room in the same house. Amber met them with hands in pockets. She did not reach first. She listened. She made sure to leave before Lily tired even when she wanted to stay. She did not step on the word mom. Autumn came with wet leaves that glued themselves to the pavement. Evelyn raked and filled paper sacks with yard waste, the kind that turn heavy when they get rained on. Lily moved them to the curb, small back straight. After dinner, she played piano in the blue room and learned how to drop her shoulders so the sound did not tighten. The keys were black and white and lined in a way that made her think of the judge's bench and long hallways only kinder. She started to put small pieces of melody together. She named one of them Unlocked without saying why. 2 years passed with Lily's hand finding Evelyn's hand in fewer doorways and more thresholds of good places. The phone rang less at night. The kettle whistled at the right times. They kept the anniversary of the rainy night with pancakes and hot chocolate. Lily called it their real Mother's Day. She taped a watercolor on the fridge that showed a square of light inside a house and rain that looked almost like confetti. Amber was different and stayed different. A small circle formed around her. She opened a storefront downtown, not just a cart. The bell over the door rang with a bright sound when you walked in. She hired a woman with a soft voice to help on Saturdays. On a late winter day, Amber introduced Michael Tran by name and not as a request. He shook hands like a person who understands other people's rooms. He brought a box of cookies with a handwritten label. He asked Lily about art and did not fill her answers with his own. He learned that Lily liked peonies and forget-me-nots, and that Evelyn preferred daffodils because they looked like trumpets bringing news. By the time Lily was 16, she had outgrown 3 coats. She played Unlocked without looking at her hands. The piece did not try to be dramatic. It stayed close and clear and made room for breath. The blue room had become her room. The bear lived on the shelf, one ear bent a small artifact rather than a shield. Her drawing started with color now. She kept a stack of heavy paper near the piano and a glass jar with 3 good brushes. On the windowsill, a cutting from Aunt Monica's pothos trailed down and bounced when the cat jumped up and missed. The day they drove to the courthouse to change a name, the sky over the river sat in 2 layers. The lower one was pale like a dish of milk, and the upper one was a deeper gray that might break. Inside, the security line moved slow. Lily stood between Evelyn and Amber with Michael a respectful step behind. The clerk stamped documents with a sound that felt final and friendly at the same time. They waited on a bench where a fern tried to be a tree. A man with white hair and careful hands walked by and paused. Judge Whitaker smiled with his eyes first and then with his mouth. "You look taller," he said to Lily. He congratulated them the way you congratulate a garden that made it through a hard frost. He shook Evelyn's hand with both of his. He gave Amber a nod that had no judgment in it, only recognition. In the small hearing room, the judge spoke clearly. The new name would include Reyes. The paper held the letters in order, and the letters held the years like a line holds beads. Lily signed with a pen that made her name look grown. When they walked back into the hallway, light from a high window made a long rectangle on the floor, and she stepped into it. That evening, the house filled with voices. Aunt Monica arrived with a casserole and a stack of paper cups. Uncle Jason carried a bag of oranges and held them up like bright planets. Amber brought a low bowl of flowers from a second bloom. Peonies folded over like they were listening to something on the table. There were forget-me-nots pressed low around the edges like small eyes. Michael poured tea and kept track of whose cup was full. At the table past the salad and the bread and the butter, Amber stood and cleared her throat. Her voice came out steady. "Thank you," she said to Evelyn, "for keeping the door closed when it needed closing and open when it could be. Thank you for standing where keys belong." No one clapped. The words settled on the table like another dish. Lily reached for water and touched the glass before lifting it. She caught Evelyn's eye and smiled without showing teeth. It was the same smile she made as a small child when she finished a picture she liked. Later in the living room, Lily sat at the piano. The room hushed in that full way that houses know how to hush when someone plays. She set her fingers on C and made the first shape of Unlocked. The melody climbed a little and then found a place to sit. The second time through, she played a softer version and let the pedal gather the notes for a heartbeat. Evelyn stood behind her and put a hand on her shoulder. The warmth traveled through fabric into bone. Amber watched from a low chair, one hand at her throat. Michael leaned on the doorway. Aunt Monica hummed, not quite catching the tune, but catching the idea. When the last note fell into the room, the kettle clicked off in the kitchen. A small puff of steam rose and vanished. It felt like the house had taken a breath and let it out. The next morning brought a thin sun and a yard that needed trimming. Evelyn watered the beds by the fence. The hose breathed a soft arc across new leaves. The water beaded and slid. Lily came out with a canvas resting against her knees. She had painted a padlock in rust colors as shackle open. Around it she had laid a scatter of petals, pink and blue and yellow. She set the canvas near the peonies. The colors talked to each other in the way colors do when someone has looked long and chosen carefully. "Good," Lily asked. "Good," Evelyn said. They stood for a time and watched a small bee figure out where to land. A breeze moved through the maple and turned light across the grass. The porch door stayed open. A chime made from old spoons tapped together in a soft musical argument. Inside, the piano waited with its clean run of keys. Outside, the hose whispered over soil that had learned how to hold. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.